It is really remarkable how far small watch brands can go these days, and it's also astonishing what complicated names they come up with. Eco/Neutra from Italy. They're presenting their latest watch named after the famous ski resort Cortina d'Ampezzo, which hosted the 7th Olympic Winter Games in 1956. So we are in the genre vintage inspired tool watch, which offers quite some possibilities. So let's start with the specs. What we have here is a hand-wound chronograph with a case diameter of 40 millimeters, a length lug to lug of 46, height of 14.8 with the crystal, and 12.7 millimeters without the crystal, and the lug width is 20. The watch has a high domed sapphire with anti-reflective coating on the inside, a ceramic bezel, and is waterproof up to 100 meters. Movement is the Sellita SW532M Elaboré with a power reserve of 62 hours. The watch comes either on a metal bracelet with an extra strap or on a leather or rubber strap, also with an extra strap, so that means you get always your two straps for that watch. You can also choose between a bronze and a black dial. The price for the metal version is 2,020 euros with VAT or 1,840 US dollars without VAT. And now into detail. We see a pretty advanced watch with a lot of functions. First, a 30-minute counter on position 12, a 12-hour counter on 6, and a day-night indicator on position 9. Then of course the pretty dominant GMT function, indicated with that red hand. We find a telemeter scale on the ceramic bezel insert for measuring distances, and you can see that most of these elements are pretty conservative designed, executed after all these examples from the actual 50s. So we have this very fine minute scale, a radial brushing on the dial, the typical vinyl structure for the sub-dials, the puristic little hands, and a pretty familiar font for the telemeter scale. But there's some fresh spices. Look at the main hands, for example, very bold in sharp contrast to, let's say, 50s Omegas. I really like how they applied their logo. At the beginning I found it rather quirky, but here it looks okay. Eco, neutra, mechanical. And I also like how they place the GMT chronograph writing and the indication about water resistance on that day-night indicator. Nice balance. All these elements are pretty flawless, which is difficult. I mean, people will complain about the cutaway numerals, but at the end it's a well-respected method to create some shared space on the dial. So, great functionality, professional designer present, and they meet decent components like that high-domed sapphire crystal and of course the movement, which is fairly new and will be responsible for a big chunk of the price. I also like the case. The lugs are moderate, not too long, not too short, and there's also this radial brushing on the lugs that looks pretty neat. Or take that transition from case to the solid end links of the bracelet. Really okay, nothing to complain there. The height might be too much for some people, and you can certainly find more slender watches, but we have to see first the chronograph functionality and that high domed crystal that adds to the measurements. Last plus, pretty versatile watch with a good presence on metal, on rubber, and of course on leather straps. The price? Well, not cheap for a rather unknown brand, but as said, the components dictate a certain amount, and the brand is not, well, brand new. You find an entire lineup of watches made by them, which is always a good sign. By the way, in case you want to experience that ski resort vibe, you could visit, of course, Cortina d'Ampezzo, or you watch the movie The Pink Panther by Blake Edwards with David Niven, Peter Sellers, and many others, and that movie is set in, yes, Cortina d'Ampezzo. So, if you like to see an in-depth review of the Cortina 1956 chronograph, then let me know in the comments. If there's enough demand, I will contact Eco Neutra for a review piece. And that said, allow me to close this episode. Thank you very much, and see you next Monday to Watch of the Week.